Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Friday Farm and Ranch podcast. My name is Lindsey Hollin. I am your host. I've been in the farm and ranch industry pretty much my whole life. Got into real estate in 2015. And so here I am helping to educate others and really improve our industry. Very excited about the guest that I have today. Very hot topic when it comes to buying and selling ranches is our land lenders. So today we have from Texas Farm Credit, Jeff and Wade. Wade has been a good buddy of mine for a while. He's helped me with transactions, comps, things like that. So I'm super excited for them to come in and not only talk about land lending, but talk about the market. A lot of people hear about the statistics on the residential market, but you rarely hear about what's going on in the separate market as far as what's going on in the land world. And that changes by county, changes by state. So very excited to kind of have an in-depth review because I love educating new landowners because they really don't have anything to relate it to. They're used to thinking about, oh, I get a mortgage and I have this down payment and I have this interest rate and here's how it goes. You know, when you qualify for a land loan, it's completely different. So I'm very excited to have these guys join me and really cover some awesome topics that are, you know, a pillar of what we do in our industry. You guys can take it away now.
I guess I'll go first. Wade from Texas Farm Credit. I'm the branch manager and vice president in the San Antonio office and region, for mainly focus on true ranch and ag loans. I come from an oil and gas background prior to lending. Started lending in 2016 and have been here with the association since then. So a lot of different lending and unique scenarios we've seen over that period of time. So hopefully anything that we have to provide for the podcast is helpful for anybody listening today. So.
All right, I'm gonna square y'all up. Sorry, we were gonna zoom in. We can see Wade's pretty face. We were giving them a hard time. They're not, you know, sometimes I realize my lenders don't really like to be on camera. So I'm sorry. Thank you all for doing this. I know it was kind of a big ask.
Oh, no problem. No problem. And I'm Jeff Milliken. I'm also with Texas Farm Credit, and I'm on our consumer purpose or mortgage side. So I deal with more small acreage, rural home purchases, or construction loans. We do a lot of lots, smaller acreage lots, and then come back and do the construction loans on those. I've been in the lending business mortgage for 20 years now, so really long time, and about 7 with Texas Farm Credit. So lots of years in the mortgage industry, and before that I was a wildlife biologist, so I got some good input on land information as well.
So you're very valuable, Jeff. So you know what? Let's get started with the land lending side. So I'm going to kick it, Jeff, to you. Let me just tell you a little story. So Jeff and I were talking just to understand, you know, kind of Wade does the larger functional ranches. And we're looking at Jeff for more of the consumer side. So a client buys a smaller ranch, maybe, you know, 10 to 30 acres, and it's really acreage with a home, you know, more of that residential feel. And those properties do have normally ag exemptions and things like that. So I was talking to Jeff a second ago. I found a beautiful piece of property. I just, as some of you know, I'm transferring into transitioning, I should say, into RV life. And I am looking for acreage. So him and I were talking about what the strategy would be to purchase the land, as well as build the improvements I would need short term and then long term. So super excited about that. Can you kind of tell us, you know, what that looks like all together, you know, your average client and kind of the scenarios that you go through on the buyer side?
Yeah, definitely. And on all of our loans, we can roll in property improvements, Wade and my side. We can roll in property improvements that range from clearing to ponds to fences or barns. So we really have a lot of flexibility on that. You know, if someone's looking for, like you, just raw acreage or small house, or house, not small house. We don't have any jumbo limits, so we really do a lot of big houses on acreage as well. But any of those purchases, refinances, construction loans, we can roll in property improvements as well. So on your scenario, we were talking about buying some raw land and getting that land ready for maybe some future building or a future even RV for a while, So at that lot, we call it a lot, it could be up to 30 acres, Oh, my light just went off on me. And
what? It's funny.
I got bad sensors.
Don't mean to jump in, but it's funny you say that, because when I'm dealing with newer land agents and they're like, well, do I write it in the farm and ranch contract or do I write it on residential? And I said, you know what, at smaller size acreage, if it truly is, going to be a residential property, I said, listen, consider it a house with a large yard. There are going to be some farm and ranch aspects to it. However, that's one way to just, wrap your client's head around it, because to them, it's a ranch. It's huge. They're living like downtown Houston, in kind of a condo apartment size, building. And so this is massive to them. So, explaining, let's, sometimes I'm like, let's just kind of, gradually get you into this. And with the agents understanding, it's not scary. Let's think of it in this way. So it makes it, a good way to comprehend and feel more comfortable with something that's larger than you're used to.
Yeah, for sure. We get a lot of people that, call and we're talking about it. And I mentioned it's a lot loan. And they're like, don't tell my husband it's a lot loan. He's calling it as a ranch. I'm like, all right, that's fine. We'll call it a ranch loan then.
There's nothing wrong with that. I've done a lot of, after, the pandemic, we've seen a lot of people upgrade that want acreage to be able to get out and their kids to run. And so really, sometimes, we sell like 5,000 acre ranches, Wade's in that, department. Like we have massive farms and ranches that do production and they're working ranches, kind of like the Yellowstone. So it's just funny when we hear it, but I remind myself like, hey, we all start somewhere and this is like their dream. So yeah, it's their ranch and that's awesome. Right. So, cool when you say lot, so we understand, you're talking about that, maybe 10 to 30 acre range as far as like a residential aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that purchase of that, let's say you find a raw land that has nothing, we can roll in that to the purchase, different property improvements or construction funds to make that what you're looking for, right? If you needed to throw in an electric and septic and a well right off the bat, or even a pad for an RV or something like that, we can roll that into that lot purchase, right?
Yeah,
Hey,
Lindsey, is something to point out too is, Jeff and them can do these 4-acre lots too. So it's not just limited to like acreage lots. So they do truly have, a lot program as well.
No minimum right. Size.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. So there's some serious flexibility if it, with you guys, not just land loans, but also rolling into the, if it's on the line, you also have the mortgage side. So tailoring, a lending opportunity and product to a customer that you guys can really flex with. So that's really awesome that you have. And like I said, I'm sitting here like picking his brain off camera, like, okay, so if I buy this piece of land, I'm going to need a well, septic, electric pulled, maybe do a barn or a shop that has, a place that I could park my RV till I'm ready for those next steps. So that's super cool. Cause I think dealing in residential, I've heard a lot of agents talk about how hard it is to get a construction loan. So to have these opportunities to really plan for the future is awesome. So awesome for you to share that with us. And then also too, you mentioned something, it's very popular to have barndominiums. So tell us about what you offer for that.
Yes, we treat barndominiums exactly the same as a stick-built home or a conventionally built home. Also log cabins, basically anything that's fairly normal, right? We do have some limitations on some wild stuff, but barndominium purchase or construction, we treat them exactly the same. So if you wanted to, you could do a one-time close, right? So we close up front, we can roll in land purchase. It's a little difficult to do that just because of timing sometimes, but we can roll in the improvements as well on that. But it's 15% down or a 85% loan to value max. We do the appraisal off of the finished product, the barn dough and the land, the future barn dough and the land. We do the appraisal based on that, and then lend up to 85% of that. But we treat them exactly the same as stick built homes. And we do a bunch of them. It's one of the more unique, usable barndominium construction loans that I know of, and so that's one of our most popular products because they're popular again. They kind of got real popular and leveled off, and now we get a lot of calls on barndominiums.
Awesome.
So that's one of our most popular.
So let's talk about the $1 million question. In your market, that this kind of like a flexible from lot to little ranchette to ranch for some folks. Can you tell us a little bit about what your market has been doing since the boom in 2020 to rolling through the holidays and the new year, and now what are you seeing, and what are the projections on your particular side of this product?
Okay, yeah, on the it's 21 or 22 wound down, right? The market really slowed down. I think rates are up. Economy wasn't great. We really saw a slowdown, but I feel like as soon as the new year happened, people kind of got a different mindset. Rates are still high, right? They're not as high as they were to end last year, but they're still a little on the high side. But we're getting a lot of people looking now, right? We're getting a lot of pre-qualifications, a lot of lots. We're doing a lot of smaller acreage and a lot of construction loans. I don't think there's inventory for that nicer home on 30 acres, right? I think all those sold in 21, right? Or beginning of 22.
Yes,
right?
we are.
Every one of them.
That is very true. I think across the board, when you talk about residential and smaller acreage, our inventory is extremely limited. So agents, go out there and get some listings. If you're a buyer or a seller, send us people that want to sell their property, because man, you will be a star. You're like you're going to be one of the only ones out there. So that's kind of what I tell people, man, this market is great if you carry the listing. So let's talk about down payments and interest rates in your market.
Okay, yeah, we're on all these loans. Our minimum down payment's 15%. Is 15%. On the lot product, that would get you a 15-year fixed term. No balloons, no prepayments, no adjustments. Rate on that is in the mid to high sixes right now on the lot loan, and then on the mid sixes on the construction home purchase, and that's 15% down on a 30-year term. So we do a true 30-year fixed rate, just like a conventional mortgage. We just require 15% down minimum, no mortgage insurance. We can roll in, even if let's say if you were buying a house on 30 acres, but wanted to add a barn or add a pond, a tank in most of Texas, ponds over here. But we can roll that into the purchase as well. So, and that's no difference in rate, no different in term. We have some really unique options as well. We can also, we allow rate conversions, which is a very unique aspect of our loans, where every year, as long as the loan's in good standing, the borrower can pay $500 and lower their rate to the market rate. So if you lock today at 6.5, a year from now it was 5.75, you can pay $500 and drop your rate to that rate, which is
awesome.
Unheard of. And refinance going to cost, refinance going to cost, 5,000 to 7,000. So, and you can do that once every year. So it's a super unique aspect of these loans. That's a really good selling point with these rates, that are double what they were, a little over a year ago.
Absolutely. And I'm going to roll into a few questions here shortly, but the last question I really had for you is, okay, so you get the land, you have this design of what you want to build, and then, you're hiring your contractors. Do you have limitations on builders and contractors? How does that work?
So we're really flexible on them, except we don't allow owner contractor, right? We can't send funds directly to the borrower. So there does need to be someone acting as a general contractor that is in the business. We're very flexible on it. We've had, people who, one contractor, one of the subs might be really kind of higher end sub that does a lot of stuff, and we'll use them as a general contractor, and they'll direct funds from that point. So we're really flexible on the builders, but we do require a general contractor to be the go-to and have draws sent to them.
That's exciting, because when you do in rural communities, like I live in the heart of the hill country, I live in Fredericksburg, and the surrounding counties here, there's not a lot of, that standard, mega multi-million dollar insurance and all that stuff. Sometimes we just have a bunch of subs and a really good contractor here. So the fact that, there's some flexibility in that is really neat in our rural communities. So that is a definite win. So I'm going to go through some of these questions. We have quite a few. And then we also have some shout outs. I'll leave the shout outs for a second. Okay. Sandy had asked, is there a difference in interest rate ranges, and then also for primary residence versus second home.
Okay. We don't have a lot of adjustments to our rates. So our rates are basically the same. We do have credit score adjustments are the really ones you have. So under 720 and below have a little higher rate than 720 and above, right? So that's really the only down payment doesn't affect our interest rates, and neither does loan amount. Conventional, you'll have tiers of credit score tiers, loan size tiers, loan to value tiers that all affect the rates, right? So those rates are really moving parts. Our rates aren't like that, right? We just have basically our rate for your term. So term really is what affects rate with us. What was the other question? Sorry. Other part of the question, do you remember? She was looking for
primary residence versus secondary.
Okay. We do allow second homes on, well, we can do second homes on smaller acreage too, but second homes on 10 acres or more, we really have a great product. It's the same product we're talking about here. It's 20% down, right? So it's a little less down, or 15 down on a 25-year term. So we call them rules, and it affects term and down payment. And so on the second home, it's 5 less. So it's a 15% down on 25-year, or 20 down on a 30-year.
Awesome.
And no jumbos, right? So we don't have the jumbo limits either. So
okay.
We can be talking about a large purchase.
That's awesome. Well, actually, I have some shout outs. It's a really funny one. Veteran relocation team says, "Hey, I went to high school with Wade." I have no idea who the person is. I just see their business. And then Jason Northcutt with North Realty Group says, "I need both y'all's contact information. I will get that sent over." Also, y'all, anytime after this broadcast, subscribe to my YouTube channel, EXP Texas Broker YouTube channel. And in the description is going to be all the information for speakers that you're going to need. So be on the lookout for that as well. And thanks. It just says T. Reagan. They're thanking me, but they said, "Hey, I love your bunny ears." So I didn't realize I'm right behind. I have bunny ears, which is kind of cool because spring. But anyways, I can't move, so I'm just going to leave it here. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for that. I'm very excited because that's a lot of amazing. Oh, hold on. It says James. Is it Richter or
Richter? Yeah.
Yeah. He's the one that said,
What's up, James?
James, you got to call me after this and give me some secrets on Wade.
Oh boy.
He knows plenty. I can
some mug shots.
Back then they didn't have cell phone cameras and social media, so they could do whatever they
Thank
want.
God.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeff. Super stoked. And I actually am going to be calling you to look over this piece of property that I found. So I'm very stoked that we have something in between the home and then the large ranches. So talking about large ranches, my man, Wade Sharp. Wade, I like to kind of start looking at both sides. So not, obviously people go lender, buyer. However, on the selling side, a really cool thing that our partnerships with these land lenders and very specifically the team over here at Texas Farm Credit is getting comps. Because as we know, anybody can go on the MLS and comp a house. There's several houses that are almost identical, same lot size, same floor plan, same builder. And so when you deal with land, every piece of land is like a fingerprint. It's all different. So, trying to find something close and then also trying to find something, if there's nothing out there like it, then breaking it up into, okay, how much does the acreage in this county, what's the price per acre? Okay, now what does it cost to put in a well, to put in a septic, to build that price per square foot? Also, what's that barn worth? And mind you, different counties have different prices because we have a lot of fluctuating material costs. So super shout out to y'all for helping us on all levels with comps. Because, hey, if you're a listing agent and you're listing a ranch, if it ain't priced right, it's going to sit on the market. It's already tough enough having the unicorn ranch that there's really only like one particular buyer for. And then if you don't price it correctly, the chances of it staying on the market well outside the realm of our 6 months to 1 year realm, can happen. I've seen unicorn ranches. That's what I call them. They're so unique. There's like nothing like it. I've seen ranches stay on the market anywhere from 3 to 5 years because it needed a particular buyer. So once again, just your land lenders are not just important because of, helping your buyers get a loan, but also if you're on the listing side, having those numbers and being able to present it to a client really helps, because, everybody thinks their property's worth a gazillion dollars more than the comps actually read. So having that factual information is awesome. Back to you, Wade.
Yeah. So, I mean, comps, we try the best we can. I know sometimes they're not, I know, Lindsey, sometimes they're more useful than others, but we're limited to our database. But definitely, I would say as far on the front end of things, I know Jeff doesn't, on the mortgage consumer side, they don't have the access to the databases we do, but on true farm and ranch stuff, acreage properties, we typically have a pretty, some recent data, a few sales that we can delve out. And if someone's needing help trying to price a property for a seller, on the do you say add to sellers right now? So I wanted to bring something up that I didn't talk to you about before this call. So right now, in an increased interest rate environment, there's a way that you can help your buyers, your sellers, everybody. If you are approaching a seller or you are listing a property and you realize, hey, these people have a loan already with Texas Farm Credit as the seller of the property. If your buyer is in a position, like because of the increased rate environment, there's a very huge demand for someone to be able to enter into a lower interest rate loan rather than originate a new loan. And so let's say you're buying a property for $3 million, just for the purposes of this conversation, and the sellers owe $1.5 million on it, and they have a 4.5% rate on their loan that they had with us when they bought it. Buyers can, as long as you identify, who has the loan on the property ahead of time, buyers can come to us, assume that loan, the seller's loan, and then take a second loan for the rest of the amount they need to borrow. And so you're going to have two loans on the property essentially, but you can have one at a knockout rate. If, let's say, the sellers bought the property in COVID, they have a 3.5% rate, and you can move into their 25, 30-year loan, at their balance. And obviously there's usually equity that needs to be made up, but we can do that on a second lien and go up to 80% on the loan to value and save people a tremendous amount of money right on those kind of situations. So it's kind of a cool sell to buyers and sellers when they already have a loan on the property with a farm credit, because our loans are assumable. So it's an interesting thing to bring up.
You know what? That's so funny, because we hear that in residential, but I've never heard it in this industry. So that is rock star, because obviously our rates are already elevated because what we're purchasing is an elevated purchase. Like, that's
right.
The way I describe it. There's a lot of risk involved for all parties when you're dealing with a large production ranch. So that's actually super cool. I had no idea that existed for us. And that, hey, that's one more pitch, showing your knowledge as an agent, as a broker, your salesmanship of, hey, listen, don't get discouraged about putting your property in the market. We have other options. So thank you for remembering that, because, we're all about strategy right now. And, we tell everybody, you marry the property, you date the rate. And as soon as the rate goes down, everyone's going to refinance. So,
and anybody who represents buyers right now, y'all know that you hear from your buyers that they're going, oh man, the rate's too high. I might have to move down. I might have to lessen the amount I'm going to borrow or buy or whatever. Well, if there's this option for them to take on a loan that has a much lower rate and a cheaper payment and offset some of that, it might allow them to buy a bigger place, or you to make a little extra commission because they're able to, afford more. So it's a big deal. I know it doesn't always work. Some people are stuck to their ways. They want to work with their own bank or whatever, but it's a good sell for us because it brings people to us for the new money that's needed on the purchase. So
super cool. So rolling into the buyer side, obviously we're talking about, a ranch. I don't like to put any limits on the ranches, but you're talking more about a ranch that has a purpose. It has some sort of a production. It has some sort of income drawing in, whether it be a cattle ranch, an exotic ranch, crops, farming. So when you have something like that, when you have a client that has those items on the property, kind of going into, what is how do we all start? I know the first thing I do, let me just back up here, guys. The first thing I do is I have a farm and ranch buyer's welcome packet. And a part of that packet is covering our basis, because there's really a foundation we have to start from. Do you have an attorney? How are you going to pay for this? Is it, cash? Is it a loan? What's going on there? And then also getting proof of funds. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're paying with cash. Proof of funds is required. If you are a serious buyer, you understand that. And just a side note, if any of you agents get kickback, my philosophy is if they can't listen to your guidance in the first interview, they're not going to be able to handle the crazy stuff we deal with at closing and when we pull title. So just a word to the wise. That's one of the reasons I start with the buyer's interview, because it really shows, is this relationship going to work? Is it going to be us working together? And my years of experience doing this every day is going to be valid. So with that, letting them know, do you have a land lender? And more often than not, I get, oh, well, we're just going to use our local bank. And I said, okay, that's awesome. I said, you might need to check with your local bank because they have limits on acreage and liabilities. And I like to always say as well, I was going to go somewhere with this. Sorry. This is the bad thing about a live podcast. You can't really mess up. Talking about their acreage and liabilities. And then I kind of give the story of, hey, in 2008, everything changed. The banks don't want anything, your local banks and your franchise banks, they don't want to have that potential liability, because it takes, you can sell a house, in 3 days. You can get offers on a home quickly. There's a lot of buyers buying homes, but ranches, it's completely different. A bank doesn't know if they buy that, it's going to stay on the market for, 6 months, a year. Like I said, some of them that, takes 3. It's just that buyer is not, we don't have a massive pool of buyers like you do in residential. So I urge them, I give them my vendors list. Obviously that includes Texas Farm Credit. And I say, hey, based on what you're telling me, here are the lenders that are out there for these types of properties. And let's find out what you're going to do. Also too, in your buyer's interview, finding out if they want improvements. More often than not, it's hard to find a ranch that checks all the boxes for a buyer. So letting them know, hey, listen, we're not limited. If we get your top 3 out of 5, then we have a loan opportunity where you can possibly build the other 2 things, down the road. So, having that conversation and like I said, it's shocking almost, 9 out of 10 of my buyers literally have no idea how separate the lending is from, a traditional mortgage to a land loan. So with that, I was going to lead you into when I introduce you to a client, kind of what are you looking for and what can you tell buyers agents to kind of help prep their clients?
So, I mean, more or less, really just to set the precedent needs to be set. A lot of the times agents will put on a seller financing addendum. I mean, and this is something that, that I see all the time. Like you're not familiar with the interest rate market. You get on and you do a financing addendum to a contract. You put an interest rate not to exceed 6%. And then you put that, and then you submit the contract, not knowing what the interest rate market's doing, not knowing what kind of rates or products are available to the buyer. And then basically, well, I mean, and if you're representing a buyer, you're giving your buyer a good out, because they're not going to, right today, you can't get an interest rate at 6%. So they could basically walk away. But if you're repping a seller and you agree to those terms, then you're giving the buyer an out because they can't secure financing at a certain interest rate percentage. So there's a lot of things like that we see in my world, specifically on the farm and ranch side, because people just aren't familiar. Like Jeff's products are completely separate from what I do. We are a cooperative structured lender. We're going to require 20% down on any ranch loan. And if it's like a commercial raw land, it could be a cornfield or a wheat field, but if it's 2 miles from the Dallas ETJ and it's priced at $85,000 an acre, like we're going to want more than 20% down on something like that, because that's probably more of an investment, it's more of a transitional, not a recreational ranch purchase. So it's really just understanding what your buyers and sellers have and what is available, is why we're here. And I've seen more and more recently where realtors are calling and reaching out and asking me questions ahead of time, which I welcome that, because then they're the ones that talk to the buyers first. They send the buyers to me. The buyer already has kind of an understanding of what I'm going to throw at them. And then it makes it a lot easier for them to digest moving forward and getting some terms set up that are agreeable and getting them comfortable with the loan product. So it's a lot different than a house, especially the higher the value goes. When you start talking loans, $5, $6, $7, $10 million, people are very, very specific about every single thing they're doing. And so it's a little bit, it's definitely different. And then the title issues you can run into on large ranches, and there's just a totally different world than making residential loans in subdivisions, and so the more that you can call a lender and discuss with somebody who understands that process, the smarter you're going to sound with your clients. And then they're not going to be coming back to you going, why'd you send me over here? Or why did you tell me this whenever it's actually this? You're going to understand it a lot better yourself. So
that goes back to me and wearing my broker hat. So, all agents, listen, we are the source of the sources. We do not know what's going on in the lending market. When you fill out that third-party financing addendum, how do you know what the interest rate? How do you know what the percentage is? That is not your field of expertise. You are not licensed. That is not you. I have a lot of people, and it probably was an industry standard in residential where they're like, oh, I just put this percent and this percent. I'm like, well, no, that's not what your client is telling you to put, and that's not what their lender told them to put in there. So it's very important that when you fill out these forms, the forms are filled out on behalf of your client. So having that information from that direct source, and obviously in the third-party financing, it's going to be the lender. Also, too, I appreciate you said that about down payments, because the biggest misconception is that they can do like 5% down or 10% down. And I literally, it's culture shock, and that's why I interview them. I say, hey, listen, I want to let you know, land lending is not the same as a mortgage. You're looking at minimum of 20% down. In particular scenarios, it might be more. And normally those scenarios, are strategically put together with the lender. So I'm really glad you touched on that. And also, you're right. It's like, why talk about something you don't live in every day, like the land lending market? It's like, I'm the source of the source. These are my people. Let's get you over to them and have these hard factual questions answered, because our market is constantly changing. We never know if it's going to go up or go down. So,
and repping, I want to add, like, repping a seller. I mean, nothing's going to make your seller more mad if your buyer wants out of a contract and the only out he has is you put the wrong rate. You agreed to the wrong rate on a, financing addendum, and now they get their earnest money back, and you tied the property up for 45 days or whatever, and they got an out because they can't secure an interest rate at a loan at a certain percentage. That'll make a quick way to make a seller upset if they can't, if they tie their property up under contract and then they give a buyer an out that way. So I see that all the time.
Wow. So you bring up a really good point. And so I'm going to ask you, in that scenario, I'm representing a seller and I get this offer. And I'm like, okay, that interest rate can't be correct. Is there a way that I can go back to y'all as lenders or the buyer's agent and say, listen, we'd like some proof of these terms from the lender? Okay.
Yeah. You call and say, what's a running rate for $1 million loan on a 20-year fixed? And you'll get it from any Farm Credit, right? Because we're going to quote you a rate that at least give you an idea of where they're at. So, because if you're talking the difference between 6 and 8.5%, I mean, that's a huge difference. And a seller says, well, I'm not prepared to do that. And you put 6% in the financing addendum, so I'm walking from this deal. And if you're repping the seller and you agree to that without knowing what kind of rates are out there, then you're going to get your hand slapped by your seller. So,
man, that's a phenomenal learning tool for the seller's agents. Like I said, land lending isn't just 100% the buyer side. There's a lot of information you need to protect your sellers. So I'm very happy that you're touching base on that particular side of the transaction. I did have a question from Salvador. He said, is land also correlated to the market cap rate similar to commercial properties?
I mean, we are commercial lenders, but I mean, we have no limitations. It's just a pretty standard loan, like 20% down, or like I said, on the higher valuation properties per acre, 35%. But I mean, I've made loans, $30 million loans, 25 million. There's no acreage limitations. As long as the property qualifies for our program, we can do it, essentially. So.
Awesome. And then I had another question talking about service areas. So, is there a limitation in Texas where you can lend? Do you go outside of Texas, or do you have referral partners in that aspect?
So for me, we focus on East and Southern Texas. The Panhandle and West Texas, we're really not too active in. That's not our chartered territory. There's a lot of other farm credits that are in the state that are chartered in other areas. But we focus Hill Country, South Texas, and basically East Texas all the way up to Dallas. Jeff, on the other hand, his products extend almost to every area of the state, because we originate a lot of their loans through a secondary market purchaser. So, and we have some blanket concurrence with other farm credits who also use that avenue. And so he can do pretty much everywhere. I try to stick to that South and East and up to Dallas area. And out of the state, if your borrower or your buyer lives in our territory, I can make them loan anywhere in the nation. So they just have to pretty much be from Texas. If someone's from New Mexico and they're buying a ranch in New Mexico, you probably need to call New Mexico Farm Credit.
Well, thank you for that direction. We appreciate that. So anything else you can kind of buyers and sellers beware? And I think when we talk about beware, there's a lot of scams out there and things like that. Is there anything you guys, like a word to the wise for people that are purchasing and selling, that you've seen kind of some really, I feel like with the internet and all the technology we have, we've just kind of opened ourselves up to a lot. Is there any experience that you guys have with that, or, kind of some education you have for our agents out there?
Well, I'll go on scam wise. No, I mean, the one we really watch out for is the title, right? The title stuff. Make sure you're dealing with the actual title company and not a scam. What I run into a lot is we get a lot of deals at the end that have tried to go through a conventional type lender. Everyone's a little slower now, so they're even saying yes to stuff that they really, maybe not be able to do, but may not know it. And it seems like the ag exemption, income producing property stuff comes up at the end of these processes. So we get a lot of loans that are at the, in closing, and they find out there's an ag exemption, or there's, cattle pens on the property, and all of a sudden, their lender can't do it. Right. The conventional mortgage lender can't do it because acreage isn't really the issue a lot of times. So I'll have a lot of them call and say, hey, I can do this house on 30 acres, but we just found out there's an ag exemption on it. So don't have your buyers lose their ag exemption over the mortgage when they don't need to, because our rates are very similar, and that could cost you tens of thousands of dollars a year, plus back taxes if you have to take an ag exemption off or split a property up to do that. So that's something we run into a lot.
Yeah, if you're selling a property with an ag exemption or representing a buyer, don't send your buyer to a bank that doesn't have experience with ag exemptions, because it's a disaster almost every time.
Yeah, and it's it's kind of funny. We deal with the higher caliber of buyer. We're talking about lots of money, so of course they think that they know everything and they read everything off the internet. Like, I love my buyers, but I definitely check them when they say, we're going to go with our bank. And I said, listen, that's awesome. I said, here's some things you need to talk to your bank when we get off the phone, or as soon as tomorrow, and ask them, what can they do a loan on this type of acreage for this price? And also, we're talking about almost every property I feel like we buy and sell in Farm and Ranch has either a wildlife or an ag exemption. And then sometimes the roads aren't really great. I've seen people really have a problem when there isn't a road maintenance agreement or things like an access agreement, which is kind of common in our world. So I really appreciate you saying that, because truly, your job is to guide the buyer in a scenario they've never been in before. So I really go through the gamut of, here's what you're looking at. I did have a scenario with a ranch that was over 10 million. And obviously that client had all their money at this one bank and they've done everything with this bank. So of course their bank said, yeah, they can do it. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. I said, please make sure you go through everything with them and check what your interest rate is going to be. Check what, just go through all the line items, because some banks can make anything work for a large amount of money, but it's not going to be what you guys offer. And it, they'll say, hey, listen, you're going to have to do this or that or jump through this hoop, but we can make it happen. Yeah. Most banks can make a $10 million loan happen. It's just not going to be, the most profitable possibly for you. There may be a lot of hidden fees and points and things like that. So absolutely great to bring that up.
Well, and also, I mean, Joe, 99% of buyers in the market are not going to be able to get that kind of treatment from their bank. If you don't have 10 million with your bank, or it's not a $10 million deal, that's not happening. So most times they'll send you out. We get some of our largest referrals come from Frost Bank, and they do ranch loans, but they do right by their customers to make sure their customers can get 30-year term or whatever they want. They're not just going to say, hey, we can do it and we'll put you on a 2-year balloon and a 15-year AM and you have to figure it out 2 years from now. Like, a lot of people will just accept those terms, but if they're educated and they know what's out there and they know they can go get a long-term loan, and also not with a depository bank, because we see what's going on with all the depository banks, Silicon Valley Bank and those other banks that are folding up right now. Like, there's a lot of safety in being with a farm credit. We run with a 90% capitalization rate. Our loans are fully capitalized. We are a massive government, backed institution. And so there's no risk into working with us when it comes to like real life stuff,
So I got to tell you something funny. We have a few questions, but my buddy Jason Northcutt in North Texas, North 40 Realty Group, he said, "Did you say ag and bank in the same sentence?"
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I had a question. So there was a question about kind of like the territories. This agent said, I focus on northeastern part of Texas, Fort Worth, and west of Fort Worth. Would it be Jeff or Wade's area?
It's going to really depend on the property more. Most of your buyers are probably coming right out of Dallas, which means that we can do it. So it really it's going to be more dependent on the property than it is on whether it's me or Jeff. So you can call either of one of us on those deals. We basically bounce them off of each other on a per deal basis to figure out what's the best fit for the buyer. And honestly, with his rates and products, we're always looking for a way to make it work with him, because his is a little bit more competitive than ours, because it's a more consumer traditional loan than just an ag or farm and ranch loan. But every deal that we are approached with, we essentially bounce it off of each other. And if it falls into my space, he's going to send it to me. And if it falls into his space, I'm going to send it to him. But honestly, we're always trying to send it to him because he's got such a good deal with Rural First. So,
and oftentimes we'll even combine. Like, we have one now we're doing where they had bought 150 acres with Wade a few years ago, so they have a really great rate, and they want to build. So we're actually splitting off and doing a partial release, which is where Wade is releasing 30 acres of this property at the same LTV, so at no cost to the borrowers, and we're using the equity in that 30 acres as their down payment on their construction loan. So we work together a lot as well, but we have different products. So yeah, it's not really one of our territories or the other. It's just per product.
Awesome. And like I told y'all, I will make sure that we have Jeff and Wade's contact information in the description for the broadcast, so you guys have access to it no matter if you need to rewatch this or anything like that. So really excited. Talk about problem solvers. That's what we're here for. We're here to help our clients have as smooth as possible transaction that we can, especially if it's our first time land buyers. So thank y'all so much today for joining us and giving us a little bit of your time. I know that both of you are extremely busy. I think Wade's going to play golf or he's going to watch golf. I don't know what's happening, but he actually took a pause so he could do this. So we appreciate both of you. Very excited about our future together. Like I said, Jeff, I will be calling you soon because I really have one of your scenarios, and I'm excited that I feel like it's more obtainable with you a part of it.
Yeah, it'll be great. I can't wait for you to experience it, because you'll You'll like it. It's a great experience for sure, and it's a great loan. And these are all farm credit loans. Wade did mention that we partner with someone to do some of these consumer purpose loans, but they're farm credit, so the loan's never sold. You're still part of the co-op, and some other great aspects like that, a rate conversion or a reamortizations we allow. So we're all farm credit loans. Just some of these are different ones we partner with for their great consumer products.
Super awesome. Well, thank y'all. We'll have you back on again. I'm sure the market's gonna twist and turn with us, but man, you guys offer some great opportunities for our buyers and sellers. So have a wonderful Friday, everybody. We're signing out, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thanks, Lindsay. Y'all be
Thank
good.
you. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.